Me? Obsessed with you? Yes.
It started as a story of hope, of self-improvement, of a mother trying to reclaim a part of herself that had been lost years before. Lauren Robinson, 29 years old, proud mother of 4, had long lived with the consequences of a cosmetic surgery she hoped to improve. Scars, frustration, and a desire to feel whole again led her to make a decision that she never could have imagined would cost her life. She decided to travel to Matamoros, Mexico for a cosmetic procedure, a journey chronicled on social media, documented in photos, videos, and shared excitement. But what was supposed to be a simple procedure to reclaim her confidence would turn into a nightmare that no one could foresee. In the weeks after her surgery, Lauren began to suffer from severe headaches, nausea, and sensitivity to light. Doctors eventually diagnosed her with fungal meningitis, a rare but deadly infection linked to contaminated anesthesia equipment at the clinic. What was more chilling was that dozens of other women who had undergone similar procedures were also falling ill, some fatally. Hours turned into days of worsening symptoms, and by the time she was rushed to the hospital, it was tragically too late. What should have been an ordinary journey of care filled with simple trust became a harrowing reminder of how fragile safety can be and how devastating the consequences are when those entrusted with a patient's life fail them. But to understand the weight of this tragedy, we must step back and look at who Lauren Robinson was before that fateful trip, before her tragic death.
We went to Matamoros, Mexico, and she went for surgery for liposuction and a BBL. For $3,000 my daughter paid with her life.
Brooke Robinson was born in 1994 in Vidor, Texas, a small town in Orange County known for its tight-knit community and family-oriented culture. From the beginning, Lauren's life was defined by her devotion to family. She grew up surrounded by parents and relatives who valued resilience and faith, and those qualities carried into her adult years. By her late 20s, Lauren was married and raising 4 children. Friends and relatives described her as a loving mother whose world revolved around her kids. She was the kind of parent who showed up for school events, who made sure birthdays were celebrated, and who poured her energy into creating a warm home environment. Her husband often spoke of her as the anchor of their household, someone whose presence brought stability and joy. Lauren attended local schools in Vidor and remained deeply connected to her hometown.
Oh, it went out!
See?
It went out.
Jesus, put that fire out.
Do it.
That's hot. It's just hot. Yes.
While her professional life was less documented in public reports, her identity was firmly rooted in motherhood and community. She was remembered as a woman who balanced the challenges of raising a young family with grace, humor, and determination. Her decision to undergo cosmetic surgery in early 2023 was not unusual. The botched breast augmentation she endured years earlier had left Lauren physically scarred and emotionally unsettled. Rather than resign herself to the aftermath, she sought corrective procedures, seeking not only aesthetic restoration, but the reclaiming of confidence and self-esteem. This decision, intended as an act of self-care, would expose her to a risk that she could never have anticipated. Like many women, she sought to reclaim a sense of confidence in her body after years of focusing on her children. Medical tourism, traveling abroad for procedures, had become increasingly common, especially in border towns like Matamoros, Mexico, where costs were lower than in the United States. For Lauren, it seemed like a practical choice. She trusted the clinic, believed the procedure would be safe, and looked forward to returning home to her family with renewed confidence. But what began as a personal decision to improve her life would end in tragedy.
Yeah, it's for my peoples in the streets. And this thing right here.
And just to clear the air, I don't give a fuck about how nobody feel about me. Keep feeling it.
In February 2023, Lauren traveled to Matamoros, Mexico, a city just across the border from Brownsville, Texas, for elective cosmetic surgery. Lauren's journey to Matamoros was chronicled online, a testament to her hope and transparency. Photos of her family trip, images of herself en route to the clinic, and snapshots inside the surgical facility painted a picture of normalcy and optimism, moments that now stand frozen in memory. She believed she was in the hands of skilled professionals. Little did she know she would be proven wrong. What started as a journey of transformation turned into a fight for survival, and a fight that tragically Lauren Robinson would ultimately lose. Her husband, Garrett Robinson, accompanied her to the clinic, supporting her decision, celebrating her courage to fix what years of caring for her beautiful babies had left behind. In the clinic, she underwent not only a corrective breast augmentation, but also a Brazilian butt lift and liposuction, all in a single 3-hour procedure. The procedures involved epidural anesthesia, injections near the spinal cord, which investigators later determined had been contaminated. To friends and family, it seemed routine, almost mundane, the promise of normalcy returning to her body and spirit. But in those rooms of the Matamoros clinic, a silent danger was waiting, a danger that no one saw coming until it was far too late. What Lauren didn't know at the time was that the clinic she visited was one of 2 later implicated in a deadly outbreak of fungal meningitis. Sadly, she would also fall victim to the disease. At first, Lauren's surgery appeared successful. She returned home to Vidor and resumed her daily life. Lauren returned home. She even went on a family fishing trip with her family, resumed her work, and tried to settle back into daily life. Yet within days, her body began to signaling that something was profoundly wrong. She began experiencing severe headaches, migraines that brought her to tears, sensitivity to light, nausea, confusion, and a sense of fatigue that could not be shaken. Garrett noticed immediately these were not ordinary post-operative symptoms. These symptoms worsened over time, and despite medical care, her condition deteriorated. Doctors would later confirm the devastating truth. Lauren had contracted fungal meningitis, a rare but deadly infection likely caused by contaminated anesthesia equipment at the clinic.
Fungal meningitis attacks the spinal canal, spreading rapidly, compromising the brain and nervous system. Doctors at UTMB in Galveston worked tirelessly, analyzing spinal fluid, conducting tests, and attempting to contain the infection. Despite their efforts, Lauren's health deteriorated. Within weeks, Lauren suffered 4 mini-strokes, her body weakening, her vibrant energy replaced by pain and confusion. Eventually, she was placed on a ventilator, fighting for her life. But what was more unsettling was Lauren's story was not isolated. The CDC later confirmed that at least 17 Texans had been infected after undergoing similar procedures in Matamoros, Mexico. Clinics such as Riverside Surgical Center and Clinica Cane Gay were identified as sources, both of which were subsequently closed. Across the country, over 200 U.S. residents were being monitored for signs of this deadly fungal infection, a ticking bomb hidden in what should have been routine cosmetic care. But for Lauren Robinson, the ticking clock proved merciless. While her family prayed for a miracle, the silent invader in her body was already claiming its toll. Despite aggressive medical intervention, Lauren's condition deteriorated. The infection, compounded by strokes and systemic complications, overwhelmed her body. Lauren's husband, Garrett, described the fear that shadowed every day, the uncertainty of whether his wife would ever wake up as the same vibrant woman, or if she would survive at all. Each day was a countdown, a cruel reminder of the consequences of a decision that should have been safe. However, he would be hit with the most saddest news. By May 31, 2023, barely 4 months after the surgery, Lauren's body could no longer fight the infection. She died in Galveston, Texas, leaving behind 4 children, a grieving husband,
and a community shocked by the tragic outcome of what had been intended as a simple cosmetic fix. She was only 29 years old.
Move now to a heartbreaking update to a story we first brought you last week. A Vider man's wife who was infected with fungal meningitis has Garrett Robinson notified friends on Facebook today. Now, his wife Lauren was one of 17 Texans who were recently infected. According to the CDC, the suspected outbreak is linked to surgeries that were done in Matamoros, Mexico under epidural anesthesia. Lauren traveled to Matamoros for a cosmetic procedure. Now, her husband spoke with 12 News previously and said she started feeling sick in the months that followed her surgery. And now he's sharing a warning for anyone who may be thinking of getting surgery there.
It's heartbreaking, and I just want people to know, tell your wife no. Women too, if you're considering, you don't have a man to tell you no, don't do it. It's not worth it.
State and federal health officials are warning people to cancel any planned surgeries in Matamoros. The CDC has identified 2 clinics associated with the outbreak. They are Riverside Surgical Center and Clinica Gate 3. Both facilities closed in May.
The Texas Department of State Health Services launched an investigation, working closely with the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Their goal was to identify the source of contamination, prevent further deaths, and hold accountable those responsible for unsafe practices. The CDC issued warnings to U.S. residents, urging them to cancel planned surgeries in Matamoros until the outbreak was contained. They emphasized that anyone who had undergone procedures at the implicated clinics between January and May 2023 should seek immediate medical evaluation, even if they had no symptoms. The warnings were stark. Fungal meningitis is rare, but when contracted, it is often deadly. Mexican authorities also intervened, shutting down the clinics linked to the outbreak. The collaboration between U.S. and Mexican officials underscored the seriousness of the situation. This was not just a local tragedy, it was an international public health crisis. The CDC's investigation traced the outbreak to 2 clinics in Matamoros. They interviewed patients, reviewed medical records, and tested samples. The findings were chilling. Basic infection control protocols had been ignored, and equipment had not been properly sterilized. Patients who received epidural anesthesia during cosmetic procedures were at risk. What should have been routine safety measures were neglected, with catastrophic consequences. The CDC and DSHS worked to identify all patients who might have been exposed. They contacted individuals across Texas and beyond, urging them to seek preventive treatment. Hospitals prepared to handle potential cases, and doctors were briefed on symptoms to watch for. At least 17 patients in Texas were infected, with 212 U.S. residents under monitoring. The scale of the outbreak highlighted systemic failures, unsafe practices, and the risks inherent in cross-border cosmetic procedures performed under questionable conditions.
This woman is proudly showing off her new figure, but 29-year-old Lauren Robinson is about to pay the ultimate price for cosmetic beauty. The mother of 4 wanted to fix a botched breast augmentation surgery from years ago that left her scarred. She decided to go to a clinic in Matamoros, Mexico for the procedure. The town is notorious for questionable conditions and cut-rate cosmetic procedures. Lauren chronicled the entire journey, posting video of her body before the surgery. Here she is en route to Mexico. And this is a photo of her in the clinic with her husband right after the 3-hour procedure. In addition to getting her breast fixed, she got a Brazilian butt lift and liposuction. In no time flat, she appeared back to normal. Stephen Fabian spoke to her husband.
She went back to work. Everything was great.
Here she is headed to a fishing trip with her kids. But a few days after this trip, she started to feel terrible.
She just kept randomly having, really bad migraines where she wanted to cry.
While all this was going on, Garrett, did you both have suspicions? Okay, this has to do with the surgeries in Mexico?
Yeah, that didn't take us long to realize.
What no one knew is that there was a ticking time bomb in her body. Doctors determined that Lauren had contracted fungal meningitis. It's believed she got it from either contaminated anesthesia or unsterilized equipment in Mexico.
you're putting a needle into the spinal canal. So if anything, the needle or other equipment is contaminated when you're doing that procedure, you can be introducing fungus or other contaminants into the spinal canal, and that can cause a meningitis.
Lauren suffered 4 mini strokes as her health declined and ultimately was put on a ventilator. Lauren died on May 31st, 3 months after the breast surgery. And now the CDC says 17 people have suspected meningitis after going under the knife in Mexico. A total of 212 U.S. residents are being monitored for signs of the infection. Lauren's husband has a message.
Don't go to Mexico for anything like that. It's not worth losing your life.
For Lauren's family, the investigation offered little comfort. While authorities sought to prevent further deaths, the damage had already been done. Lauren's children were left without her mother, and her husband was left to navigate grief while caring for 4 young lives. Her family faced a dual burden, mourning her death while grappling with the awareness that her decision, motivated by self-improvement, had intersected with systemic failures that ultimately proved fatal. Her children, still young, would grow up without the presence of a mother who had once been their world. Garrett Robinson, grappling with grief, also carried the responsibility of guiding his children through trauma they could not yet comprehend. Lauren's death reverberated far beyond her family. In Vidor, her community mourned the loss of a young mother whose life had been cut short. Her obituary described her as leaving a void in the hearts of those who knew and loved her. Friends organized memorials, and neighbors rallied to support her husband and children. Nationally, her case became part of a larger conversation about medical tourism. Experts warned of the risks of seeking procedures abroad, particularly in facilities without strict oversight. While cost savings were tempting, the dangers could be life-threatening.
Medical tourism is much more common. The number 1 most visited country is Thailand, and the second most visited country is Mexico. And as we've seen the prices for cosmetic procedures come down, we've actually seen more people traveling to other countries for them.
When we're talking about price, how big of a factor is that for why people choose to go abroad?
So factor is huge. Initially when we thought about cosmetic surgery, it's mostly people who were from affluent backgrounds, but now it's more accessible to normal everyday people. So people are looking for procedures that they can just save up a few months for and get those procedures that only famous Hollywood folks get in the past.
The death of Lauren Brooke Robinson was not an isolated tragedy, but part of a devastating pattern. She was one of several women whose lives were cut short by the same silent killer, fungal meningitis contracted after cosmetic surgeries in Matamoros, Mexico. What began as a promise of beauty and renewal became a nightmare that spread across borders, leaving families shattered and communities grieving. In early 2023, health officials in Texas had begun noticing a disturbing pattern. Patients who had undergone cosmetic procedures in Matamoros, Mexico, were returning with severe headaches, fevers, and neurological symptoms. The diagnosis was shocking: fungal meningitis, a rare but deadly infection. By the time the outbreak was contained, at least 7 women had died, 6 in the United States and 1 in Mexico. Some medical reports placed the toll even higher, suggesting up to 12 fatalities among 24 confirmed infections. Regardless of the exact number, the outbreak was one of the deadliest of its kind linked to medical tourism. Like Lauren, most of the victims were women in their 20s and 30s, many of them mothers. They had traveled to Matamoros for procedures like liposuction, breast augmentation, or tummy tucks. The appeal was clear: lower costs compared to U.S. clinics and the promise of professional care just across the border. But the procedures involved epidural anesthesia, and investigators later discovered that the anesthesia equipment had been contaminated with fungal spores. Once introduced into the spinal fluid, the infection spreads rapidly, inflaming the protective membranes around the brain and spinal cord. For the victims, symptoms appeared weeks after surgery. Headaches, nausea, sensitivity to light, and confusion were common. By the time many sought medical help, the infection had progressed too far. 24 confirmed cases of fungal meningitis were linked to the outbreak. 7 deaths were officially reported, 6 Americans, 1 Mexican. Nearly half of those infected died, underscoring the severity of the disease. Victims were primarily from Texas, but cases were identified in other U.S. states as well. But why was the infection so deadly? Fungal meningitis is rare, but when contracted, it is devastating. Unlike bacterial meningitis, it does not spread person to person. Instead, it enters the body through contaminated medical equipment. Treatment is difficult. Antifungal medications must be administered intravenously, often for weeks or months. Even then, survival is not guaranteed. In this outbreak, the delay in diagnosis made outcomes worse. Many patients did not connect their symptoms to their surgeries until it was too late. Behind the statistics were real lives. Children who lost mothers, husbands who lost wives, parents who buried daughters. Lauren's 4 children were left without her mother. Other families faced similar heartbreak. The outbreak was not just a medical event, it was a human disaster that tore through households and communities. Lauren Robinson's story serves as a cautionary tale, a vivid reminder of the potential consequences of medical tourism, the necessity of proper sterilization and oversight, and the human cost behind statistics and warnings. It underscores the fragility of trust, the importance of vigilance, and the devastating consequences when safety is compromised. For her children, the memory of their mother will endure. For her community, her death is a wound that underscores the need for compassion and accountability. And for the broader public, Lauren's case is a lesson. Health decisions carry risks, and those risks must be weighed with care. Rest in peace, Lauren Brooke Robinson. Your story will not be forgotten. What do you think about it? Let us know in the comments below. And if you found this story intriguing, please like, share, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this.